And in the interim, JP FABRI will be joining us. He's the managing director of ARQ, and he'll be speaking about what the Maltese government has been doing. Thank you so much. A round of applause for JP.
So good afternoon, everybody. I'll be eventually walking through the Maltese element of regulation. So just to So just to start off, I think Malta is getting the reputation of being the blockchain island, and most probably the best way to get started is to focus a bit on the island, just in case not everyone knows where this little island is. So it's in the Mediterranean Sea, just above North Africa and below Europe, very small island, 312 square kilometers with a population of 420,000. So we're actually the smallest country in the EU. We're an English-speaking jurisdiction. We're a member of the EU, also a member of the Euro area and the Schengen zone, blessed by a beautiful climate, 300 days of sunshine, and we have quite a very long-standing history. We also have a very attractive tax system, and we don't have any natural resources. We are also the fastest growing economy in the EU, with a projected growth of 5.7% and the lowest unemployment rate in the EU. So we have been successfully growing our economy for the past 12 quarters at an average of around 6 to 7% real GDP growth. So the question is, how did we get here? Right? Small island, no resources. And over the years, we have developed a love affair or an affinity with regulation. So we always believe that the power of economic growth for an island like ours can only come through regulation. Regulated industries which give a platform for international companies to set up in Malta and exploit the power of regulation. We went about by setting a maritime register, which today is the second largest in the world. A couple of years ago, we started the aviation register, private jets. Today, it's the largest. Financial services, pharmaceutical. So pharmaceutical, what we did, we just interpreted patent law differently than most other companies. The result is that all the generic pharmaceutical manufacturers in Malta have a base manufacturing generic pharmaceuticals. So all the large scale are in Malta. Medical cannabis, we already legislated. We have 10 companies setting up factories as we speak in Malta. Remote gaming, so before ARQ, I was a member of the Prime Minister's private cabinet, and we worked on setting the remote gaming industry in Malta. Today, it's the world's capital of online betting, casinos, and all of that. Migration by investment. We have a residency scheme and a citizenship scheme, which supported inward investment. So we always have a knack to try and identify what the next big sector is going to be. 2 years ago, we started seeing blockchain. We identified that this is a force for good. It will most probably revolutionize most sectors, and we realized that everyone was staying away, except the markets. So we said, it is time for us to actually regulate. And we set about regulating the industry. So just a bit of a background, it would be good also to touch upon the regulatory challenge of blockchain and what that presents. So it's a question of squaring two worlds, right? So we have a legal framework that has been, till now, associated with a paper-based economy, a traditional business model. But currently, we have a world order that is moving towards bits and bytes, 24/7, very disruptive business models. So the challenge for regulators out there is how are we going to square these two worlds? Now, why do we regulate in the first place? So we regulate to provide clarity for investors because investors want to get along and making decisions for their own business and run their business. From an economic point of view, from a national point of view, we want to use regulation to leverage cluster development. So we want to develop economic sectors around laws. We also want to make sure that we're in line with international obligations. So we're living in this compliance world, AML and all those. So there is a question of ticking all the T's. Financial stability, when we're talking about anything related to the financial sector. And ultimately, the ultimate aim of financial regulation remains investor protection. So there's a whole spectrum of reasons why we should regulate. Now, in terms of blockchain, we need to identify what needs to be regulated, right? Because the easiest way to kill an industry is if you stifle it through regulation. So you need to find that sweet spot, right? So blockchain is a layered technology. It's an enabling technology which does a multitude of things, amongst which storing digital records, it executes smart contracts, and it facilitates the exchange of digital assets, financial, tokenized assets, and all of that. So what you want to do is provide a regulatory framework which is sensitive to this, which is sensitive to the technology itself, because the least thing you want to do is stifle innovation from a technology point of view. And the Maltese government and the regulator, what it did was actually that, right? So we're very tech-centric in our approach. That is, if we're talking of the digital platform, we're not regulating that. What we're doing is we're providing a voluntary certification program, whereby the smart contracts running on your platform get audited independently, see that there aren't any cybersecurity risks, no backdoors, all of that. You get certified by a Maltese authority, an innovation authority, right? So that gives you a seal of approval that it has been third-party examined. And we're finding out that a number of players, large players, platform players, want to get that even for investment rounds, because it gives them an added seal of credibility. When it comes to exchanging digital assets, it's all about financial services. So that is what we set about regulating. And the regulation has the investor in mind, right? So the investor who's investing in digital assets. So, what are the main regulatory challenges out there, especially with a link to blockchain? So we have a lot of disruptive business models happening. Pacing, so technology is moving fast ahead of anything else, and regulation. Investor protection, so we saw a number of ICOs that failed, people saying that there are scams or not. But in reality, this is the normal life cycle of anything which is new. Same if we look at crowdfunding, we're seeing the same percentages. AML, and ultimately, all this is technology-driven, and there is a data privacy and cyber risk. So it's not a very easy landscape for regulators to be navigating through. So what are the global approaches to crypto regulation? So we have a number of countries that have taken different approaches. And I categorize them in three main. So we have the standard setters, so who went out, first mover, and are setting the standards in regulation. We're not alone. Malta, I would say that Gibraltar as well, Switzerland, and also we're seeing Liechtenstein that is coming on stream as well. We then, and in this case, what we did is we drew up a regulatory framework around blockchain technology. So it's not a hodgepodge of different things, but it's clean, it's specific for this industry. We then have other jurisdictions that are the consumer protectors, right? Whereby their main interest is to protect investors and might actually over-regulate and stifle innovation. Then we have the national focus regulations that actually see decentralized technologies as threats to their governance systems. So they would most likely stay away or actually give an outright ban. So the question begs, does crypto want regulation? So this is just an economic exercise that was performed, basically analyzing the price of Bitcoin after news came out either of an outright ban, or if Bitcoin falls under security law, or if there is a specific legal bill or framework for crypto assets. And we can see that the market responds positively. So the price increases when there is a new specific bill for crypto assets. So there is this need or want that the market will be more confident if there is regulation. So let's look at the blockchain island itself. What did we do and what are we doing? So the starting point was not from a regulation. The starting point was from a very focused, laser-focused vision. Right? So the government set about a task force, and the main remit was to have a blockchain strategy for Malta, which was built on a number of pillars. So the first was technology. So how are we going to make sure that the technology remains innovative in Malta? And the government set up a new digital authority, innovation authority, tokens and crypto. So we wanted the token and the crypto economy to become an important pillar of Malta's future economy. Education, very important, that we wanted to ensure that we have a pipeline of talented human resources coming on stream. So I also am a lecturer at the University of Malta. We opened a new center for distributed ledger technologies. We're designing a new course in DLT for law, a DLT for business, and a DLT for computer scientists, where we'll be offering postgraduate and undergraduate degree courses, scholarship programs in partnership with industry, and also PhD programs going on. So for us, education is always important. The fourth pillar is public services. Right? So how do we utilize blockchain technology, DLT technology, within the government? And this already started to be rolled out. So today, all education certificates in Malta are issued on the blockchain. We're looking at land registry, court registry, we're looking at health records. So a lot of work is being done to actually start using DLT in public services. So just to give you a timeline, the national blockchain strategy was approved in April 17. February 18, government launches a consultation document on cryptocurrencies. In July, the legislation is approved in Parliament. By then, we already had announcements by Binance, OKX, a number of other large crypto exchanges saying that Malta will be their headquarter location. October 2018, the legislation comes into force. January 2019, sandbox environment is launched for the use of cryptocurrencies and DLT in remote gaming. February 2019, 2 weeks ago, the FinTech strategy is launched. In 3 weeks' time, we launch the AI strategy and regulatory framework. Later on this year, we'll be launching, hopefully, a consultation document on augmented reality and big data. And by the end of the year, we should be in a position to launch the Internet of Things strategy and Industry 4.0 strategy for Malta. So we're always seeing what's coming next, because the government and the industry knows that the true potential of blockchain will come through the integration of IoT, big data, and AI. So What did we license or regulate? So we're licensing ICOs, STOs, exchanges, brokerage, custody, and investment funds. Right? So we have hedge fund structures specifically for crypto investments, huge interest from Switzerland, Swiss funds coming into the island. STOs are the next big thing. We're seeing a lot of interest over there, but there are some tweaks to make in the legal framework related to the corporate law, right? So you start seeing how are you going to define a share register, voting rights, and all of that. So there are a bit of issues that hopefully we'll manage to solve in the coming month. Exchanges, huge interest. So these are all licensable activities, and the government has very clear procedures, processes of what is needed, ongoing obligations, AML, KYC, and all of that. So, as I said, crypto is just one element of the vision of the country. So we're seeing DLT, tokens, but then we're seeing FinTech, and we're seeing AI. Right? So I think the next big area will definitely be AI. So in terms of FinTech, which was launched only 2 weeks ago, what are we looking? We're looking at creating international links. Why? Because today FinTech and hubs are spread around the world, remote working. So I'm pretty sure that we'll be seeing collaboration between different continents as well. And I'm impressed at the scale of development that is going here on in Cape Town. There's a big focus as well on knowledge development in terms of FinTech, security, cyber security, what's happening over there. So there's a lot of investment. We're looking at the architecture of systems. We're looking at regulations, and in fact also sandbox environments are coming out in the FinTech, both insurance, financial services, and the works. But ultimately we're looking at creating an ecosystem, right? Because regulations do not thrive alone, do not operate in silos, but only you get the full benefit of a regulatory environment if there is a whole ecosystem around it. So, just to conclude about the regulatory sphere, I think the main lessons for regulation in today's world can be distilled in a number of points. It has to be adaptive. Change constantly is the only constant thing. Sandboxes, very important, so that the private sector and the regulator can learn together. You can play around in an environment where regulations are laxed. You can see what works, not works. Investors can actually go in a sandbox knowing that it is a tested environment being tested, so you can see exactly what's happening. Regulation should be outcome-based, right, as well. So you're trying to not really regulate all the processes, but the outcomes. Risk-weighted, not a one-size-fits-all, but you have different standards according to the services that you're providing. And ultimately, it needs to be collaborative. So in Malta, I think we're very blessed that there is a very open relationship with the private sector. The private sector actually sits down with government to legislate. Right? So many a times, the ideas that government legislates comes from us practitioners. So there's a very collaborative process. And it's not about regulation alone. So the starting point has to actually be having a very focused strategy and vision, then as well a regulatory framework, banking facilities, crucial, and I think that is a bit of an issue with the Maltese ecosystem currently. So you have the large banks who are shying away due to all their KYC obligations, so that is a bit of an issue over there. You need to make sure that you have the infrastructure and the facilities around creating an ecosystem, and ultimately, the end is always talent and education, because you need a pipeline of human resources coming in to grow that growing ecosystem and the industry which is being built. So, to conclude, we aim, as I already said, to be global players in this area and the jurisdiction of quality for FinTech and blockchain-driven companies. Thank you very much. Thanks.